French President Emmanuel Macron stood before a joint session of Congress Wednesday and said that the U.S. should remain a part of the Iran nuclear deal. It was the first time a French president addressed Congress in more than a decade. Here's some of what he said about that deal.
As for Iran, our objective is clear. Iran shall never possess any nuclear weapons. Not now, not in 5 years, not in 10 years, never. There is an existing framework called the JCPOA to control the nuclear activity of Iran. We signed it at the initiative of the United States. We signed it both the United States and France. That is why we cannot say we should get rid of it like that.
The French president also added that this policy should not lead us to war in the Middle East. Louis Nelson is a reporter for Politico. He joins me now from Washington. So, Louis, you reported that Macron's speech reminded some of Trump's White House predecessor, Barack Obama. Our Margaret Brennan reports that Macron told some reporters late Wednesday that he believes President Trump will pull out of the Iran nuclear deal. Does that mean their relationship is not as strong as it may look?
Well, I think that was really what was so striking about President Macron's speech today before a joint session of Congress was that the past 2 days have really been this big show of this really warm friendship between President Macron and President Trump, a fairly unlikely friendship given that President Macron was endorsed by Barack Obama and that President Trump, while he didn't really endorse anybody in the French presidential election, certainly spoke warmly of Marine Le Pen, who is this sort of far-right nationalist candidate who ran against Macron. And so there was this big show, you know, hugs, kisses, warmth, all that kind of stuff these past 2 days at the White House. And then today, President Macron gets in front of Congress and basically lays out a sharply different vision for the future than anything that President Donald Trump has laid out.
Well, Macron also urged the United States to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. Has there been any movement on that front from the administration?
He didn't just urge the U.S. to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. He basically predicted it. He said the U.S. will eventually rejoin the Paris Climate Accord at one point or another. I don't know that there's been any movement, certainly from the Trump administration on that front. But I think President Macron was speaking more, years, decades, things like that. I think what he was trying to speak to was, not just, one presidential administration, but the next, generations of how the world is going to work, the relationship between the U.S. and Western Europe and the rest of the world. And I think he was sort of speaking to a general confidence that, at least from his perspective, that the world is going to come around, at least those who haven't already come around, on the issue of climate change and climate science, things like that.
Well, Louis, also on Wednesday, we learned President Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, will plead the fifth in the Stormy Daniels case. Attorney General Jeff Sessions declined to say whether he has recused himself in that investigation. He's already recused himself from the FBI's Russia investigation. Why do you think he wouldn't elaborate?
Well, what Jeff Sessions said today in a congressional hearing was that he didn't want to answer any questions. He didn't feel he could answer any questions about whether or not he had recused himself without violating Justice Department protocol about acknowledging the existence of an investigation and other sort of particulars that the Justice Department lays out. And so that's why he felt like he couldn't answer those questions, although he did say that if the Michael Cohen investigation if he were to discover that the Michael Cohen investigation were related in some way to the 2016 election, he would honor the recusal that he initially laid out, his recusal being that he would not oversee anything involved with the 2016 election. And so there's a little bit of complicated sort of legalese there with the Attorney General's answer.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, meantime, the White House is defending Veterans Affairs Secretary nominee Dr. Ronnie Jackson against allegations of workplace misconduct. At this point, does it seem like the president will keep standing by him?
Well, all the indications thus far, or at least most of the indications thus far from the White House, have been that the president is intending to stand by him. The White House was pretty vehement in its defense of Ronnie Jackson today. Really, the only indication from the White House that they might not stand by Jackson was from the president himself at a press conference yesterday with Emmanuel Macron, where he said, you know, I'll let Ronnie Jackson make up his mind. I'll let him be the one to make the decision. But, you know, if I was him, I wouldn't want to go through all this. I wouldn't want to go through all the scrutiny and things like that. All that said, the White House can stand behind Ronnie Jackson all they want. It is becoming increasingly clear that Republicans in the Senate are not really interested in confirming Ronnie Jackson. There seems to be quite a bit of smoke, even if a lot of these allegations thus far are unsubstantiated. The Republicans, with John McCain absent getting treatment for cancer, only have 50 seats in the Senate. Confirming Ronnie Jackson at this point is a very tall order. Maybe we put it that way.
All right, Lewis Nelson, great to have your insight. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, Elaine. Thank you.